Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's operational information update on the flooding and landslide situation in BC. For today's briefing, we will have updates from Minister of Public Safety and Solicitor General Mike Farnworth and Minister of Transportation and Infrastructure Rob Fleming. We are also joined on Zoom by Armel Castellan, Warning Preparedness Meteorologist with Environment and Climate Change Canada, and David Campbell, Head of the River Forecast Centre, Ministry of Forest Lands and Natural Resources. We also have on hand for Q's Ashok Badi, Executive Director, South Coast Region, Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure, and Paula Cousins, Regional Executive Director, Southern Interior Region, Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure. As a reminder to everybody on the phone line, please press *1 to enter the queue. You're limited to one question and one follow-up. I will now hand it over to Minister Farnworth.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. I'm honored to be here on the traditional territory of the Lekwungen-speaking people and the Songhees and Esquimalt First Nations. Yesterday, I announced that the province is extending both a temporary measure to limit fuel for non-essential vehicles and the provincial state of emergency through to the end of the day on December 14th to support the ongoing response and recovery from the severe storms that we have been experiencing. The coastal and southwest regions of our province will continue to face more heavy rainfall over the next 48 hours, while still recovering from the impacts of the widespread flooding. Late today, we are expecting a significant storm forecast to last into Wednesday afternoon. In some areas, such as the Central Coast, this could be the most intense storm yet. The province has already mobilized assets in the Bella Coola Valley in preparation. In southwest BC, Environment Canada is warning of extreme rainfall that may worsen existing flooding or create new flooding. This storm may not have the same level of intensity as we saw mid-month in some of our hardest hit areas, such as the Fraser Valley, but the cumulative effect of this succession of storms will be and continues to be a major challenge. As communities in coastal and southwest BC brace for a heavy storm this evening, the best approach is to avoid non-essential travel and wait out the weather. With a third of the series of storms nearing, I want to urge British Columbians to pay close attention to Environment Canada forecasts and road closures. And for their part, Environment Canada is holding their own press conference later today. Also, and I can't emphasize this enough, please follow the directions of your local government, your First Nation, especially if an evacuation alert or order has been issued. Evacuation orders are given to protect lives and must be taken very seriously. Follow all instructions. The local officials on the ground have the best understanding of site-specific conditions and how to safely respond. And if you're unable to evacuate on your own, call 911 and report your location immediately. For now, what people should do is to get prepared. Being prepared makes a huge difference for yourself, for your family, your community, and our emergency responders, and all those working tirelessly to mitigate the impacts and repair the damage caused by these storms. There is uncertainty about this next storm as the forecast models do vary, but we're doing everything we can to make sure people and communities have the resources and supports that they need. Emergency Management BC and an army of local government staff and community volunteers are ensuring shelter, food, medication, and other resources are available to those in need. As well as sandbags, emergency kits, livestock feed, fuel, and other supplies, we're coordinating additional supports and services from the federal government, as well as non-governmental organizations and industry. Crews are working around the clock to shore up dikes and dams to protect essential infrastructure, residences, and farmland, to clear, repair, and reopen highways and other essential corridors to sustain the flow of goods and services to our communities, and to fly missions all over affected areas, helping, assessing, and delivering supplies. Right now, over 500 Canadian Armed Forces troops are working tirelessly across the Southwest, the Central Coast, and Vancouver Island. They are sandbagging, moving tiger dams, and other equipment, transporting residents to their homes to retrieve important belongings and winterize their properties, and moving health personnel between Chilliwack and Abbotsford so that people can continue to get the health services that they need. As Minister Fleming will cover, We have proactively closed roadways that might be at risk of flooding or landslides to protect the public. That said, we've also been able to safely reopen some of our highways due to the tireless and collected efforts of our crews, our road crews, the Canadian Armed Forces, and many, many others. We aren't in the clear yet, and this recovery will take time. But we'll get there by working together and supporting each other. And now I'll turn it over to Minister Fleming. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Farnworth, and good morning. Following the latest storm event, our highways have generally operated well. We continue to monitor the incoming weather. Yesterday, we reopened highways 3 and 99 after they were cleaned up and confirmed to be safe for travel. They had, of course, been preemptively closed on Saturday in advance of the last storm. Both of these routes continue to fall under the travel order for essential traffic only. And since reopening, traffic has generally flowed well on both highways. However, given current forecasts, we're going to have to close Highway 99 once again between Pemberton and Lillooet. That will happen at 4 p.m. today. Drivers should expect some delays as all traffic will be using Highway 3 and Highway 7 in that corridor to move in and out of the region, as Highway 1 remains closed in 2 locations, between Chilliwack and Abbotsford and east of Chilliwack between Popcom and Hope. I do remind drivers that these routes are not up to the same condition before the first storm arrived 2 weeks ago. Some commercial truck drivers may not be familiar with these routes, and we are asking everyone to please slow down, please be patient, and accept that it will take longer and drive according to current conditions. We all truly appreciate the hard work and dedication of so many people who've worked so hard to keep our highways and trade routes functioning during this unprecedented time. I would like to acknowledge and thank the general public as well for their patience and understanding. Highway 1 is the single most important artery in the Lower Mainland, and when it's closed for an extended period, I know that it's difficult and very challenging for people. The same goes for Highway 7, which is restricted to essential traffic, and I know this is challenging for people who have to go to work or school or have appointments that they have scheduled. I want to assure you that the Ministry of Transportation does not make these decisions lightly. In some cases, it is for safety reasons, as is currently the case with Highway 1. In other cases, it's to maintain the supply chain in our province and for essential reasons, as is the case for Highway 7. We're in the midst of an extraordinary situation that requires an extraordinary response. We will open up Highway 1 as soon as it's safe to do so. In the meantime, I want to thank people for their continued patience and understanding. And I ask employers to continue to be as flexible as you can with your employees over these next few days as we get through this storm event and deal with it. Remember, this is for the short term. We will get through this. With the brunt of the next weather system moving in, the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure is ready. We're monitoring conditions across the province, including the mid and south coast, the interior, and the north part of Vancouver Island. Crews and equipment are ready to be deployed in all of those regions as needed. In preparation for the rain forecasted to impact Highway 20 and the Bella Coola Valley, a travel advisory is now in place to warn motorists of conditions on Highway 20. We're staging maintenance crews and avalanche teams along the corridor to respond quickly to changing conditions, and we will continue to advise the public through Drive BC and specific travel advisories. If it's not necessary for you to be driving in the Bella Coola area now, please stay off the roads. Safety remains our key consideration, and if required, we will preemptively close more highways again, as we have done with Highway 99 beginning at 4 p.m. this afternoon. With the ground already extremely saturated and heavy rains expected, proactive closures may be needed to ensure the safety of the traveling public. We don't take these decisions lightly again, but the current conditions are not typical, and we need to keep everyone's safety at the forefront. We'll certainly provide as much notice as possible if this is required. If you need to be driving, I urge you again to check Drive BC for the very latest updates on road conditions. But again, if your travel is not absolutely necessary, then please do not be on the roads and highways. Thank you very much.
We will now go to Armel Castellan. Go ahead, Armel.
Hello, thank you very much. My name is Armel Castellan. I'm a warning preparedness meteorologist with Environment and Climate Change Canada. As has been stated, a few times now. This is the third of three very potent atmospheric rivers that have arrived on our coast. Overnight, we have already seen upwards of 60 millimeters in Hope. The Central Coast has also seen the early start of this atmospheric river, and it will continue overnight into tomorrow evening. There will be some lulls, but we do expect some very high quantities of rain, upwards of 100 millimeters in Howe Sound on the North Shore, 150 even possible on the outside of Vancouver Island and the Central Coast, and deeper inland as well. So Bella Coola is not immune, could see up to 120 millimeters. And we have other regions, all four quadrants of BC currently are lit up with snowfall warnings up near Stewart, in the Peace Country, and in the Columbias. We will see some spillover from this event as well into the coastal mountains, so the Coquihalla Summit, and over towards, not quite reaching, but getting towards Princeton and Merritt. So again, this event is very strong. It's the third consecutive storm in a week with very little respite in between these events. So the effects are cumulative. In addition, the freezing levels are climbing currently, perhaps up to 3,000 meters higher than the last two events. So snow melt is also a component of this event and will add to the storm totals of rain into the rivers and creeks. And we urge everybody to follow the forecast, listen to the warnings, listen to the authorities for all recommendations for people's safety and for the safety of our first responders on the ground. We do have a break coming Thursday morning. We should be mostly done the precipitation. Friday as well will be essentially dry. We do have a smaller system coming up the coast and will affect the south coast late on Friday into Saturday morning. The quantity of rain is not expected to be copious as has been seen, but we could see certainly a small jump in precipitation for Saturday primarily. And again, some activity from the Pacific late in the weekend into next week. So we don't expect large quantities, but we will be keeping a very close eye on the continued barrage of storms affecting the BC coast as we go into next week as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Armel. Now we will go to David Campbell. Go ahead, David.
Thank you. It's obviously been discussed in terms of heavy rainfall expected from this next atmospheric river that is making landfall now. In addition to that, it was talked about the rise in temperatures, and we're certainly expecting to see, with abundant snow that's available, particularly at low and mid elevations through the Central Coast, as well as mid and upper elevations on the South Coast, that we do anticipate additional runoff from that. For example, last weekend, we did experience upwards of 30 to 60 millimeters of snow water equivalent melt, in addition to the rainfall amounts that Armel has discussed. Particular concern is risks associated through the Central Coast, where there is a risk of moderate to severe flooding from the current forecasted conditions. And that would include the potential for flooding within communities in the Central Coast, in the Bella Coola Valley, Weekanoo, and the Kincombe River. We expect that really to be over the next 48 hours, so rising river levels through today and continued tomorrow with that ongoing rainfall. On the South Coast, as we swing there in Vancouver Island, we do expect similar conditions to deteriorate through today and into tomorrow, with that next 48-hour period being critical. At this point, it's very similar in terms of forecast to what was experienced this past weekend in the last few days in terms of conditions. But again, given that cumulative impact and storm after storm, we do expect that that could be exacerbating the vulnerabilities, and we could see deterioration of conditions that on rivers that we've seen already, or the creation of new flooding issues throughout the South Coast region. And that would really include everywhere from the lower mainland, the Fraser Valley, up into the Fraser Canyon, as well as Howe Sound, Sea to Sky Country, and up into Whistler and Pemberton. As Armel discussed, rainfall is expected that could have that spill over into the interior drainages. And so again, looking at those risks from ongoing vulnerabilities in the Merritt, Princeton, Lower Nicola region, as well as Spias Creek. As we look to the Fraser Valley and the Sumas River conditions in the Nooksack, do expect that could be another area to see high flows over tomorrow, the period today into tomorrow. And at the moment, we've dropped down about 4 feet or so from conditions that were experienced over the weekend. So we've got a little bit of room, but are expecting with this rainfall to push that back up as we go into tomorrow. So there is risk late tomorrow of seeing another overtopping event in the Nooksack River. We're certainly watching the forecasts coming out of the Northwest River Forecast Center closely. The National Weather Service in the U.S. has issued a flood watch for Whatcom County, including the Nooksack River. And again, it looking like the forecast right now for similar conditions and risk of overspill that we saw on the weekend. So currently, we have flood watches in effect for the Central Coast, Vancouver Island, South Coast, Fraser Valley, Fraser Canyon, and into the interior watersheds on the Coldwater, Lower Nicola, and Tulameen. The River Forecast Center is actively monitoring this weather as it comes through and the conditions on rivers, and we will upgrade or issue flood warnings if conditions warrant. Thank you. That concludes the update from the River Forecast Center. Thank you.
Thank you, David. As a reminder to media on the phone line, please press *1 to enter the queue. First question today is from Mira Baines, CBC.
Minister Farnworth, is 500 Canadian Armed Services personnel working in BC enough to deal with this storm and the recovery work to come? Is BC planning to request more help?
If we need to request more help, we will request more help. So in terms of additional troops, that's not a problem right now. We have troops in all the key areas, whether it is on the Fraser Valley, whether it has been in the Princeton area, or on Vancouver Island. They are deployed to where we're being told they're needed, and if we need additional ones, they will be sent right away. And on top of that, I'd also add as well, the Canadian Armed Forces Base, or the Air Force Base in Comox, is also standing by and ready to assist with aircraft resources as well, as is the Esquimalt Naval Base.
Mira, do you have a follow-up?
Yes, and this is a question for Environment Canada. Can you confirm that the Fraser Valley will not see rain amounts of 150 to 200 millimeters during the storm? Will that area avoid the worst of the rain this time?
So very similarly, and thank you for the question, similarly to the weekend system, the area around the border of Washington State will be likely closer to that 50, 60 millimeters from Abbotsford, Chilliwack, and particularly westward, whereas Chilliwack and Abbotsford could see closer to 80 millimeters. So it is perhaps a slight bump up from what we saw this past weekend. So large amounts, but definitely not 100 to 200 millimeters. You have to be on the west coast of Vancouver Island, on the outside coast of the Central Coast, and down through Kinkham Inlet, perhaps to see the 200 range. And that would be in elevated terrain in that southwest facing slope orientation.
Next question is from Ben Milger, CTV.
Thank you. We've already seen this in one neighborhood in Abbotsford, but when it comes to landslides, in addition to highways, there are local neighborhoods that could be at risk. Is there any advice for people who live on or near saturated hillsides and may be wondering about the stability of the slopes around their houses?
What I can tell you is that on the ground, experts and crews have been out to assess areas that may be problematic, and if there is a concern, then obviously an evacuation alert would be put in place, and so people should be paying attention to the directions from their local officials.
Ben, do you have a follow-up?
Yes, I do. In terms of the dikes and the tiger dams that were installed recently in Abbotsford, how are they holding up in advance of this expected deluge of rain?
From what I'm hearing from the city of Abbotsford and the crews and the people on the ground, they're very confident in the repairs and the improvements that have been made in the form of tiger dams and the sandbagging that has been taking place and the involvement of not just volunteers but our Canadian forces and the crews on the ground in Abbotsford. There has been a significant amount of preparation done, and so they're feeling confident. But obviously, we have to be prepared, as they say, prepare for the worst and hope for the best, and that's what everybody's doing.
Next question is from Jyoti Gruel, Fraser Valley Current.
Hi, yes. So the Fraser Valley Regional District is expressing concerns about needing permission and money from the province to do urgent work to prepare for and prevent flooding. Can you speak to what the delays are?
There's none. There is no request for permission for urgent repairs to prevent flooding.
Jyoti, do you have a follow-up?
Yes. Can you, for Minister Fleming, how long will it take to complete Highway 1 repairs at Jackass Mountain between Booth Road and Lytton?
Yeah, thank you for the question. We'll update on the progress there. That's obviously an area where CN Rail is working alongside Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure. So it's hard-going work. There's no question about that. But there are crews both for rail and highway assisting one another to gain access and to get material in there and make those repairs. But specifically, we'll have an update on that perhaps later this week.
We have one more question today. Richard Zussman, Global News.
Minister Farnworth, last week you were optimistic that we could have an atmospheric river alert system and rating system in place by early next year. My understanding is you've been told that it may take longer than that. Is there a possibility that we could not see a system like this in BC for, more than a year, if not longer? And what should people be concerned about that?
I know that work is underway. I had initially been told that it would be January. I've heard that it may well, in fact, be later than that. And obviously, I'm glad that the work is underway and that we're going to get one. I think what's important is that we're able to have a better understanding of the nature of atmospheric rivers. And so I think when we're hearing, from Environment Canada, the kinds of reports that we have been getting in terms of the significant amounts of rainfall, the potential on that, coupled with the information we've also have received in terms of the Americans use a system as well. I think that we will be prepared in terms of dealing with events like this. It's always nice to be able to have an extremely helpful to have the system that's being proposed as soon as possible. But I'm glad that it's underway, and it's not going to hinder us in our ability to be prepared for future events.
Richard, do you have a follow-up?
How long have you been told that the river system program may be delayed?
I'm not in a position at this point to comment on how long it will take. What I can tell you is that it is being worked on. I hope that it is being done as expeditiously as possible. And obviously, given the events of this past few weeks, I would hope that it becomes very much a priority.
We have one more question we're going to add to the queue. Cindy White, Castanet.
Hi there. This question is for Armel. I'm wondering about the rising freezing level and the possibility of avalanches or other events on highways further east that could cut us off from the east. Are we watching that?
Go ahead, Armel.
Hi, thank you for the question. Absolutely, with the freezing levels climbing as high as they are this deep into fall and early winter, in fact, there are ramifications for the snowpack at higher elevations. Avalanche Canada and Ministry of transportation and infrastructure are obviously looking at that very closely. We provide them the weather elements there, and we are in consultation with them throughout the winter so that all best case decisions can be made according to the potential avalanche risk.
Cindy, do you have a follow-up?
Yeah, for Armel as well. What is Environment Canada doing to prepare for the possibility of these kind of events happening more often? I know particularly rain on snow. I covered the Calgary flood, so that was a major factor in that. It seems to be happening more often. Is it something that you're looking at for future planning?
Go ahead, Armel.
Well, absolutely. You know, it all has to do with partnerships between Environment Canada and River Forecast Centre, as well as some of the mountain communities and the expertise locally in the province. So we are very keenly aware of the rain on snow additional impact that we've seen recently, that we've seen in the past. Chilliwack has also had floods after big snow events right down to sea level. And these are things that are part of the thinking behind how we issue forecasts, because it certainly does include that component of rising freezing levels, the warmth that's associated to these atmospheric rivers, and not independently from just the rain component in and of itself. So without question, these are cascading or multi-hazard events, and that is part of how we have to adapt to the future climate, and that's a moving target. So it will be continually evaluated as we modernize our forecasting systems.
That concludes today's information update. Please note our next scheduled update is Wednesday, December 1st. Thank you.